a young boy sold his own drawings on the street in a desperate attempt to help his seriously ill mother, who was hospitalized. Anthony was a small boy from a humble background, used to a simple life full of limitations. He grew up alongside his mother, Nicole, a hard-working woman who worked as a street cleaner and earned very little, but never let a lack of money stop her from giving care or affection. Everything she did was for her son, always putting his well-being first, even if it meant sacrificing her own needs. Anthony never knew his father. There were no pictures, no stories, no memories. It was a silent and permanent absence that he learned to accept without asking questions. Aside from his mother, the only close relative was Uncle David, Nicole's brother, a man who was an alcoholic, selfish, and absent. David only showed up when he needed to ask for money and never showed any real concern for his nephew. From an early age, Anthony understood that his reality was tough. He saw his mother struggle every day and realized how hard it was for her to keep everything going on her own. Still, despite the lack of money and hardships, he always felt protected. Nicole's effort and love were his security. As days went by, Anthony began to notice that something was wrong with his mother. Nicole, who had always been steady in her pace, quick in her work, and consistent in her spirit, started showing a different kind of tiredness. She no longer got up with the same energy she used to, and when she came back from work, her legs seemed heavier than before. She tried to hide it, forcing a smile and saying it was just the heat, just a hard day, just a passing discomfort. But Anthony saw it. He saw everything. She would sit on the couch, clutch her chest, take deep breaths, hide her face in her hands, and then get up with difficulty. She avoided eating, saying she wasn't hungry, and several times she needed to lie down before the afternoon was over. Anthony, worried, insisted, "Mom, why are you like this? This is more than just tiredness," Anthony said, frowning, holding her hand tightly. "It's just nausea, my son. It'll pass tomorrow," Nicole said, trying to smile, but her voice was weak and uncertain. "But it's been days, Mom. Go to the doctor, just to find out what it is," Anthony said, eyes wide, almost pleading. "No need, my love. We don't have money for that. It's just a little discomfort. It'll go away soon," Nicole said, looking away. Anthony didn't believe her. Something inside him told him this wasn't simple. And no matter how much he insisted, she stayed firm in denying anything serious. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was guilt. She didn't want him to worry, so she hid what she felt. Then came the inevitable day. Anthony was at home folding a school notebook and trying to fix a torn cover with tape when he heard a knock on the door. It was a sharp, quick knock, and when he opened it, he found a man in a white uniform with a serious look, holding an ID badge in his pocket and a paper in his hands. "Are you Anthony?" the man asked, looking into the boy's eyes. "Yes, I am," Anthony said, suspicious and in a low voice. "I'm from the hospital. Your mother fainted at work and was taken there. She just woke up and asked for you," the man said in a calm but direct tone. Anthony froze for a second. The world stopped. Then he ran without even putting on his slippers properly. The walk to the hospital felt longer than ever. His feet hurt, but he didn't feel it. All he could think about was his mother, lying on some white bed, surrounded by wires and strange people. When he arrived, they asked his name and led him through cold, long corridors to a small infirmary. Nicole was there, pale, lying with her eyes half open. When she saw him, she tried to get up, but couldn't. "My son," Nicole said, her voice almost fading. Mom, what happened? They said you fainted," Anthony said, running to her and grabbing her hand. "I'm here. I'm alive." "Just weak, my love," Nicole said, trying to smile again, but this time she didn't even have the strength to pretend. She looked at the nurse and asked to be left alone for a moment. The nurse nodded and quietly left, closing the door slowly. Nicole took a deep breath. She was visibly tired but determined to speak. "Anthony, the doctors told me what it is. I have a serious illness, Nicole said, staring intently at her son. Anthony's heart raced. He squeezed his eyes shut, trying not to cry. Illness? What illness, Mom? It can be cured, right? He asked, trying to find some comforting answer in her eyes. There is treatment, yes, but it's expensive. Very expensive, son. We can't afford it, Nicole said, lowering her head. Anthony knelt beside the bed, hugging his mother tightly. I'll figure something out, Mom. You took care of me all my life. Now it's my turn. I'll take care of you, he said, voice trembling but firm. Anthony, no. You're just a boy. You can't miss school. You can't do anything reckless because of me, Nicole said, stroking his hair with her weak fingertips. It doesn't matter. I'll do something. I promise, Anthony said, standing up determined. She tried to hold his hand, but he had already moved away, heart as strong as ever. His mind was racing. On the way home, he thought and thought. What could he do? What did he know how to do? He didn't know how to work, had no money saved, no one to ask for help. But there was something inside him, a burning flame, an uncontrollable will to fight. Passing a side street, he saw a girl sitting on the sidewalk, drawing on the ground with colored pencils. It was a simple drawing, but colorful. It reminded him of something. He had always been good at drawing. Since he was little, he took old-school notebooks and filled them with characters, scenes, animals, faces. The teachers praised him. Even Nicole kept some of his sketches in a cardboard box. He ran back home, took out notebook sheets, cardboard from a box, pens, pencils, and spent the night drawing. He made landscapes, portraits, animals, everyday scenes. He put his heart into every stroke. When he finished, he took an old poster board and carefully wrote, "Selling drawings to help my sick mom." The next morning, instead of going to school, he went to the street. He chose a busy corner, set up a small makeshift stand with a cardboard box, and propped the drawings on the ground. He put the sign in front and sat down, watching every person who passed by. "Hi, want to buy a drawing? It's to help my mom who's sick," Anthony said, holding a paper with a dog drawn on it. Some people looked and walked away. Others stopped. A lady crouched down. "Did you draw this boy?" the woman said, surprised by the detail. "Yes, ma'am. It's all mine. I'm selling to help my mom. She's in the hospital," he said, sincerity in his eyes. The woman took a drawing, pulled a bill out of her purse, and handed it over without asking for change. "Keep the change, my son, and lots of strength to you," she said, smiling with compassion. That was how the whole day went. A man in a suit bought 3 drawings. A young woman gave money without taking anything. Another man read the sign and was moved. "You're strong, kid. What you're doing is beautiful," the man said, before slipping a folded bill into Anthony's shirt pocket. By late afternoon, the drawings were all gone. Every sheet had found a generous hand, and every word spoken had turned into small acts of hope. Anthony carefully gathered the money he had received throughout the day and put it all inside a plastic bag that he folded and tied with care, as if carrying something sacred. Still not believing his own courage, he hurried back home, feet aching but chest swelling with pride. He had never held so much money at once. He had never felt something so strong, the feeling that even though he was small, he could make a difference. Arriving home, he placed the bag on the table, sat down, and stared at it for a few minutes. He thought about how he would tell his mother everything. He imagined her smile, the surprise, the emotion. He was getting ready to take a shower and go straight to the hospital to see her when he heard loud, sharp knocks at the door. A chill ran through his stomach. He got up and opened it. On the other side was David, his uncle. The smell of alcohol reached him before the voice did. "Where's your mother?" David said, eyes red and with an impatient expression. She's in the hospital. She got sick while working," Anthony said in a dry tone, stepping back a bit, holding the door firmly. David frowned, shaking his head as if it was an exaggeration. "And you stayed here alone all this time?" David said, crossing his arms, leaning on the doorframe. Yes, they told me and I went to see her. She's weak but awake, Anthony said, looking steady despite the fatigue. David looked around the house, noticing the light mess of papers and pencils. His eyes then fell on the bag on the table. "And what's this? What's all this paper?" David said, stepping inside uninvited, pointing with his chin. Anthony hesitated but answered proudly, "I drew them. I spent the day selling them on the street. Everyone helped. I got good money," he said, going to the bag and holding it with both hands. "It's to pay for her treatment." David raised his eyebrows. The uninterested expression disappeared for a moment. His eyes narrowed. "You sold all this? Alone? And people actually paid," he said, moving closer. "They paid. Some didn't even want change. They told stories, asked about her, said she'd get better," Anthony said, voice shaky but hopeful. David scratched his beard, thoughtful. He walked slowly toward the boy and crouched down a little, coming to his eye level. "Listen here, kid. What you did is beautiful. Really," David said, voice lower, almost conspiratorial. "But there's a problem. The hospital might not accept money coming from a kid. They'll ask questions, get suspicious. It could cause trouble. You understand, right?" Anthony squeezed the bag's handles, confused. "But I just wanted to help. I didn't do anything wrong," he said. "I'm not saying you did. I'm saying it could cause trouble, but there's a way out," David said, putting a hand on his shoulder. "I'm your mom's brother. If I take the money, no one will question it. I can say I got it from some friends, a side job, I don't know. The important thing is she gets the treatment soon." Anthony looked down, thoughtful. Everything in him screamed caution. But something about how David spoke made it sound reasonable. David leaned in a little more, lowering his voice even further. "Now listen, better not tell your mom anything," he said. "She's weak, kid. This would just worry her more. Imagine if she knew you were missing school, selling stuff on the street, putting yourself out there. She wouldn't handle it. It'd make things worse." Anthony bit his lower lip, face tense. "Are you sure, Uncle? I don't know if hiding this from her is right," he said, hesitating. "Trust me. We'll do it together the right way," David said, gently squeezing the boy's shoulder. "You do your part drawing, I take the money. And when she gets better, you both will know it was thanks to you." Anthony swallowed hard. His heart split between intuition and hope. He wanted to believe so badly. He wanted someone else to help him carry that weight. Slowly, he handed the bag to David. "So, promise you'll give her everything, Uncle? Every cent?" he said, looking the man in the eyes. "I promise. For my sister," David said firmly. "Leave it to me, and remember, better she not know for now. She needs to rest." Anthony nodded slowly. His fingers took a while to let go of the bag. When David left, the boy stood at the door, watching him walk away. He didn't know exactly why, but a growing unease filled him. That night, after giving the money to Uncle David, Anthony took a long time to fall asleep. Lying on the worn mattress on the floor of his room, he stared at the dark ceiling and thought about everything that had happened in the last few days. The image of his mother lying in the hospital, so pale, so different from the strong woman he knew, wouldn't leave his mind. He wondered if the money had reached her yet, if the treatment had started, if she was feeling better. The next morning, he woke up early, even without an alarm, washed his face, took a sip of water, and sat on the living room floor to draw. This became his routine. At night, he drew until late, lit only by the weak light of a hanging lamp. He created scenes of nature, portraits of families, dogs playing, children running. During the day, he went to the same corner where it all began, set up his small stand, and carefully displayed the drawings, arranging each one to catch the eyes of passers-by. In the afternoon, whenever he could, he stopped by the hospital to see his mother, asked if she was okay, if she had eaten, how she felt. Avoided asking about the treatment. He was afraid she would ask how he was getting the money. He preferred to keep silent, even if it hurt him. "Drawings! Drawings to help my sick mum!" he shouted, voice steady but already tired. Many recognized the boy. Some came back to buy again, others just stopped to talk. One of them was Eric, a middle-aged man who passed by almost every day. He had already bought several drawings, always asked about the boy's mother, and Anthony always answered honestly. "She's still in the hospital, but my uncle is taking the money," Anthony said, handing over a drawing of a huge tree. "Your uncle?" Eric said, carefully taking the drawing. "He's the one handling this for you?" "Yes, he said he could deliver it for me." "Because I'm a kid, right? Makes it easier," Anthony said, trying to smile, but with deep eyes. Eric frowned. He had never seen this uncle, but something about the story bothered him. From the beginning, something felt off. He respected the boy's space and didn't want to be intrusive, but in recent weeks it was weighing on him. Anthony looked more and more worn out. Dark circles stood out on his thin face. The energy that once sparkled in his eyes seemed gone, and day after day he was there, alone. "Are you still studying, kid?" Eric asked one morning. "Sort of. I'm focused on helping my mom now. I'll go back later," Anthony said, avoiding the man's gaze. Eric sighed. Something didn't add up. If the boy was selling so much, if the money went straight to the hospital, why did things seem the same? Why hadn't Nicole gotten better? Why did David never say anything directly? That's when, one late afternoon, he decided to act. He waited until Anthony finished selling, kept his distance, and started following him discreetly. Stayed a safe distance, watching every step. He saw the boy enter the house. Shortly after, he saw David arrive. The door opened, Anthony appeared with an envelope, probably the day's money, and handed it to his uncle. Eric stopped on the other side of the street, pretending to look at shop windows but staying alert. When David left the house, Eric followed him too, walked behind the man for several blocks until he entered a bar hidden on a side street. Eric approached slowly, pretending to talk on the phone at the entrance. From there, he saw David at the counter, ordering drinks, then gambling at the back of the room, laughing with two other men. And he kept drinking and drinking. Suspicion turned to certainty. Eric's stomach turned. He couldn't prove it, but everything indicated that the money the boy sweated to earn was being wasted there on alcohol and gambling. He went home with a tense face and heavy steps. He didn't sleep that night. The next morning, he went straight to the hospital, asked to speak with the social worker, sat calmly, told her he knew Anthony, bought the drawings, knew about the boy's fight for his mother. He also said the money was being handed to the uncle. The social worker pulled up the records. There had been no payment made in Nicole's name since the hospitalization. Not a single payment, not even one transaction, Eric asked, voice tight. Nothing. Since she was admitted, the only support has been the free services we secured. No private payments made, the woman answered firmly. With a heavy heart, Eric went to Anthony's house, found the boy finishing another sheet, sitting on the floor. His face was thinner, eyes tired. "Hi, Anthony. We need to talk," Eric said, sitting beside him. "What is it?" the boy said, confused. "I went to the hospital, talked to the social worker. She said no money came in, no payments were made," Eric said, trying to keep his voice calm. Anthony was silent. The hand holding the pencil froze in midair. "What do you mean?" he said, voice shaky. "I also followed your uncle yesterday. Saw him go straight to a bar after getting the money from you. He drank, gambled. I don't know how much he took, but I'm almost sure it was yours," Eric said, looking at the boy firmly but with compassion. Anthony looked down. His breath became shallow. He tried to speak, but the words stuck. The memories of the past weeks swept through him like a storm. The sleepless nights, the effort, the hope. Now it all seemed like a lie. He promised," the boy said, eyes full of tears. "He said it was to help her, said it was better this way. that she'd worry if she knew. "He lied, Anthony. I'm sorry, but he tricked you, and your mom is still there waiting for help that never came," Eric said, lowering his head. Anthony stayed motionless for a few seconds, then squeezed his eyes shut, tears falling uncontrollably. "I was an idiot," he said, voice breaking. "No, you were a brave boy trying to save your mom. He's the jerk, not you," Eric said, putting a hand on his shoulder. They stayed silent for a while. Then Anthony took a deep breath, wiped his face with his shirt sleeve and lifted his eyes. "I want to talk to him. I want to hear it from his mouth. And you have to be there, tomorrow, when he comes for the money," Anthony said firmly. "Are you sure?" Eric asked. "Absolutely," he said. The next day, at the usual time, David showed up, knocked on the door with the same rush as always, came in without waiting for an answer, already with a cynical smile on his face and eyes fixed on the envelope on the table. "So, kid, made a lot today?" David said, confidently walking through the room as if he owned the place. But this time, Anthony wasn't alone. Eric stood by the door, arms crossed, looking firmly since he heard the man's footsteps. David stopped when he saw the stranger. The smile faltered, shrinking. He looked from Eric to Anthony and back to Eric, suspicious. "Who are you?" David said, voice tense. "I'm someone who decided to stop pretending not to see what you're doing," Eric said, standing up slowly. David frowned. "Why are you getting involved, man?" "This isn't your business," he said, trying to keep his stance but clearly uncomfortable. "It is my business. I went to the hospital, talked to the social worker. No payments were made. Not a cent of the money you took got there," Eric said firmly. David blinked a few times, as if trying to process it, then let out a forced laugh. "You're crazy. That's just bureaucracy. It takes time," he said, trying to approach the table. Eric stepped forward, blocking the way. "You stole your own nephew's money, the money he worked hard to get. He drew and drew, day and night, thinking he was saving his mom. And you? You spent it all on drinks," Eric said, voice getting harsher. "You don't know anything," David shouted, fists clenched. "Mind your own business. This is family stuff." "Family stuff is about love, respect, presence. There's none of that in you. You're a parasite," Eric said, eyes burning. David suddenly lunged, pushing Eric with both hands, face full of rage. "Don't interfere, you trash," he shouted. Eric fought back immediately, pushed David hard against the wall. The impact knocked a frame off the wall. Then he threw two short, sharp punches to the man's chest and shoulder, making him stagger and stumble sideways. Anthony watched it all, frozen, his heart pounding, eyes wide, but unable to move or say a word. "You're a scumbag," Eric shouted, breathing heavily. "Stealing from a child, leaving your sister to waste away in a hospital bed while you blow the money in a filthy bar. You should be ashamed to exist." David, mouth bleeding and face pale, tried to say something but only coughed. He staggered to the door, glanced briefly at Anthony, as if expecting some defense, some support, but found none. He turned his face and left without a word. The door stayed wide open. The silence that followed was heavy. Eric turned to Anthony, still breathing hard. "You're not alone, kid. From now on, we'll do this the right way. Together," he said firmly, but quietly. Anthony nodded silently, eyes full of tears but holding them back. For the first time in weeks, he felt someone was truly by his side, and maybe, just maybe, things could start to change. The next morning, early, Eric knocked on Anthony's door. He brought a backpack and a serious expression. Anthony opened, still half asleep but with attentive eyes. "Go change, kid. We're going to fix this now," Eric said firmly. Where are we going?" Anthony asked, rubbing his eyes. "To the police station. It's time to end this cycle. And only you can tell the whole story," Eric said without hesitation. Anthony nodded slowly, went inside and changed clothes. It wasn't just fear he felt, it was a weight The weight of weeks lying to his mum, the weight of trusting his uncle, the weight of suffering silently. Now, for the first time, it seemed he could let it all out. At the station, they were received by an officer who led them to a simple room with a wooden table, 2 chairs and a stack of papers in the corner. A female officer named Rebecca attended them. "Are you Anthony?" she asked kindly. "Yes," he said, voice low. "Do you want to tell us what happened?" Rebecca asked, pulling out a notebook. Anthony looked at Eric, who just nodded. The boy took a deep breath and began. "I started drawing because my mum got sick. She fainted at work and was taken to the hospital. When I saw her there, weak, and the doctor said the treatment was expensive, I wanted to help," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Rebecca wrote as he spoke. "And how did you help?" she asked. "I made drawings, spent one night drawing. The next day I took everything to the street, made a little sign. People started buying, asked about her, helped me. I sold everything," he said. "And what happened next?" Rebecca asked carefully. "My uncle showed up, said the hospital wouldn't accept money from a child, that it could cause trouble. He asked to take the money from me. I trusted him, thought he was doing the right thing," Anthony said, eyes shining. "He asked you to hide this from your mother?" she asked. "Yes. Said she'd get sicker if she knew, that it was better not to tell, and every day he came for the money," Anthony said, voice breaking. "I thought I was saving her." Rebecca took a deep breath, closed the notebook and said softly, "You were very brave. We will record all this, and we'll handle this case the right way." As they left the station, Eric put his hand on Anthony's shoulder. "You did the right thing, kid. Now we'll tell your mom everything she deserves to know. From you," he said. At the hospital, Nicole was sitting on the bed, still weak, but with eyes livelier than in previous days. When the door opened and Anthony entered with a man she had never seen, she looked up with slight surprise. Still, she smiled at her son with that same affection that resisted any pain. "Hi, my love. Back already," Nicole said softly, trying to sound cheerful despite the evident fatigue. Anthony walked slowly to the bed, carrying a visible weight in his body and gaze. He sat on the edge, took his mother's hand gently, and stayed silent for a few seconds. The man beside him stood still, respectful, with a serious face. "Mom, we need to talk," Anthony said, struggling to meet her eyes. Nicole frowned, not understanding the tone. "What is it, son? Did something happen?" she said, lightly squeezing his hand. Anthony took a deep breath, throat tight. "I lied to you," he finally said. Nicole's eyes widened, surprised. "Lied? What do you mean? Why?" she said, already uneasy. "I wanted to help. When the doctor said the treatment was expensive, I got scared. Angry that I couldn't do anything," he said, swallowing back tears. "So I started drawing, made lots of drawings, stayed up nights, took everything to the street. I sold the drawings, Mom. Every day on the sidewalk, people helped, bought because they knew it was for you." Nicole put her hand over her mouth, eyes filling with tears. You did all this alone," she said, voice trembling. "Yes, and I gave the money to Uncle David. He said the hospital wouldn't accept it if it came from me, that it could cause trouble. Asked me to leave it with him, and told me not to tell you, not to worry you," Anthony said, voice breaking. "But he lied. He never brought anything here. He kept it all." The words hung heavy in the air. Nicole was silent for a few seconds. Slowly, she brought both hands to her face and broke down in tears. Her crying was deep, painful, as if each sob opened a new wound. Her son, right there, had sacrificed himself without her knowing, and David, her own brother, had betrayed not only her trust, but the effort of a child who just wanted to help. "My God, my son," she said, hugging Anthony tightly despite her fragile body. "You went through all this silently. hiding it from me. You shouldn't have carried this alone." Anthony cried too, burying his face in his mother's shoulder. "I just wanted to see you well. I just wanted to save you," he said between tears. The silence was broken by Eric's voice, who until then had respected every second of the moment between mother and son. "Sorry to interrupt. My name is Eric," he said, stepping forward. "I met Anthony on the street buying the drawings. I always thought he was an extraordinary boy. I started to notice something was wrong, and when I found out the truth, I couldn't stay silent anymore." Nicole lifted her eyes, still tear-streaked. "You helped him?" she asked, still confused. "I tried, but maybe not soon enough. But now I'm here, and I'm here to stay," Eric said firmly. "From today, the treatment will come out of my pocket. It's not charity, it's responsibility, because I saw up close what you went through, and because no one else will trick you." Nicole looked at him, eyes full of feeling. There was a mix of gratitude, pain, and relief. "But why would you do this for us? You don't even know us," she said sincerely. "Maybe that's exactly why," Eric said with a slight smile. "Because the world has turned its back too many times on those in need. And because this boy has a heart that deserves to be protected." She took a deep breath, still emotional, and extended her hand to him. "Thank you, Eric, really. I don't even know how to begin to thank you," Nicole said, shaking his hand firmly. "No need to thank me. Just let me help, and let Anthony be a kid again," he said. Nicole pulled her son back into a hug, squeezing him to her chest as if to protect him from everything he had already been through. Anthony closed his eyes, finally feeling the weight lighten. At that moment, between tears and honest words, the three began to form something new, a bond not of blood, but of a sincere choice to care for each other. In the following days, Nicole's treatment finally began. Appointments were scheduled, tests updated, medication regularized. Gradually, she gained color, regained strength in her voice, spent more time sitting than walking around the room. David, meanwhile, was located by the police a few days later. He was preemptively arrested and, in the weeks that followed, tried for fraud, breach of trust, and family neglect. The family did not defend him. Nicole didn't go. Anthony didn't go. David was alone on the defendant's bench. The trial was brief but firm. The judge heard the charges, testimonies, analysis of expenses, and the lack of any transfer to the hospital. The verdict came like the end of a chapter. Guilty on all counts. And for the first time, David faced the consequences of his actions. Meanwhile, Anthony stayed strong. He visited his mother every day at the hospital, now bringing flowers, books, and drawings. The doctors were amazed at her improvement. They said, "Love makes a difference." And it really did. When she was discharged, still unable to return to work, she devoted herself fully to her son, organized the house, cooked with him, helped with schoolwork. It was a silent restart, but full of meaning. Anthony went back to school, resumed his studies with effort but also with will. The teachers, knowing the story, welcomed him carefully, encouraged his drawings, and Eric went further. He got him a free spot in an art drawing course at a local cultural center. "This course is for you to explore what you feel, what you lived. You don't have to make it pretty, you just have to make it honest," Eric said, accompanying him on the first day. Anthony dived in headfirst, drew with more freedom. Now the strokes carried emotion, told stories of overcoming courage and affection, dreamed of creating illustrated books for children with characters who faced pain with truth. Eric became part of their routine, took Nicole to appointments, went to school meetings, had lunch with them on Sundays, never tried to take space that wasn't his, never imposed himself. He just was there, steadily, respectfully. "You're like a godfather," Anthony said one day. "I accept that title with honor," Eric said, smiling. Nicole also came to see him as family, not out of obligation but choice. He had become a true friend, an unexpected support amid the chaos. And so they went on. Nicole, with her health back and dignity intact. Anthony growing up among pencils and dreams. Eric, present as a quiet but firm pillar. They formed a new family, not by blood but by care, by choosing to stay, by giving without expecting anything in return. United by pain, they rebuilt their lives with justice, truth, and real affection. And they moved forward, not as victims of the past, but as survivors who chose to write a different future. Together. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, give it a like, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. See you in the next story.